On a crisp morning in February 1925, Victor Lustig walked into a Parisian café with a forged letter of authority, a confident smile, and a plan that would convince a city's officials they could sell the Eiffel Tower, not once, but twice. The audacity of the scheme still raises eyebrows today. A man who, in a single lifetime, managed to pull off the greatest real estate swindle in history, and later flooded the United States with counterfeit currency worth millions of dollars. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in what was then Austria-Hungary, in the small town of Hostine, now part of the Czech Republic. The son of a modest civil servant, he learned early that a quick mind and a silver tongue could open doors that money alone could not. After serving in the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I, he drifted into the world of petty crime, honing his skills in forgery, confidence tricks, and the art of disguise. By the early 1920s, Luster, he began spelling his name Luster to sound more sophisticated, had already earned a reputation in the underworld for his daring scams across Europe. The Eiffel Tower con began when Lustig learned that the French government, struggling with the tower's high maintenance costs, was considering dismantling the iron structure. He seized the opportunity, crafting a convincing government letter stamped with the Ministry of Posts and Telegraph seal, and posed as a senior official. In a small office in the Rue de la Paix, he met with a group of scrap metal dealers, presenting them with the sale of the tower for a modest sum, enough to make the deal appear plausible yet lucrative for all parties involved. The dealers, eager to profit from what they believed was a once-in-a-lifetime government disposal, handed over a hefty down payment. Lustig vanished with the cash, leaving the dealers bewildered when the real government denied any such transaction. His success emboldened him. A month later, he repeated the ruse with a different group of buyers, this time in a more elaborate setting, complete with forged documents, a false official's badge, and a secret meeting in a smoky back room. He collected an additional £500,000 before disappearing again, this time fleeing to the United States, where a new continent offered fresh prey. In America, Lustig's con artistry evolved from selling monuments to producing counterfeit currency. By the late 1920s, he had assembled a small crew of skilled forgers, chemists, and printers, each recruited for a specific talent. Together, they created superdollar, notes that mimicked the look, feel, and even the subtle paper fibers of genuine United States bills. Their operation was meticulous. They sourced high-grade cotton linen blends, employed the same intaglio printing techniques, and even replicated the micro-printing found on authentic notes. The counterfeit money entered the market through a network of unsuspecting merchants, traveling salesmen, and street vendors, spreading like a silent virus across the Midwest and East Coast. By 1935, federal authorities had caught wind of a surge in high-quality forgeries. The Secret Service, tasked with protecting the nation's currency, launched an intensive investigation, tracing the distribution patterns back to a modest warehouse on the outskirts of New York City. A tip from an informant within Lustig's circle led agents to a raid that uncovered hundreds of counterfeit notes, sophisticated printing presses, and a ledger detailing transactions amounting to over $2 million in today's dollars. Victor Lustig was arrested in a dramatic midnight bust, his hands still stained with ink from a fresh print run. The trial that followed was a spectacle, drawing crowds eager to see the man who had once sold the Eiffel Tower face justice. In the courtroom, Lustig maintained his trademark composure, smiling politely at the jurors while subtly attempting to charm the judge with anecdotes of his business ventures. Yet the evidence was overwhelming. Forensic analysis confirmed the counterfeit note's near-perfect replication, and the ledger linked him directly to each illegal transaction. On June 10, 1935, after a brief deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on charges of counterfeiting, fraud, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced Lustig to 20 years in federal prison. the maximum penalty allowed for his crimes, and ordered the seizure of all equipment and remaining counterfeit notes. The sentence was intended not only as punishment, but as a stark warning to other would-be con artists daring enough to challenge the nation's financial security. Lustig's incarceration, however, did not entirely silence him. From his cell, he continued to correspond with old contacts, offering advice on future schemes and even attempting to smuggle small amounts of forged currency to his allies outside. His reputation, paradoxically, grew into legend. Inmates whispered about the man who could outwit governments, and the press dubbed him the man who sold the Eiffel Tower. After serving 15 years, Lustig was released on parole in 1950. A broken man whose health had deteriorated under the harsh conditions of the penitentiary system. He retreated to a modest apartment in New York, living out his final years in relative obscurity, far removed from the grandiose confidence tricks that had defined his earlier life. Victor Lustig's story is more than a chronicle of criminal daring. It is a cautionary tale about the seductive power of charisma, the vulnerabilities of institutions, and the relentless pursuit of law enforcement in the face of ingenuity gone awry. His legacy endures in the annals of con artistry, reminding us that even the most improbable scams can become reality when ambition meets opportunity. Subscribe to The Verdict for more stories like this.